Hello again, cold world. It's me again, Uncle Chuck. I'm back to talk to you about, well, pretty much where we left off last time. You know, we were talking about a subject that just couldn't be talked about in one video, so I thought I'd get back to it again today. And we were talking about firearms and whether convicted felons should be allowed to carry. Well, the country is torn on that. Some people feel that, depending on the crime that the person committed, they depends on whether they should be able to have their gun rights reinstated. Other people say just hell no altogether. I think the country is so caught up now on the fact of whether good people should be able to have guns or not that they're not really interested in what's going on with the convicted felon. It's kind of like they've got the attitude where, they made their bed, let them lay in it. Well, that's easy for us to say when we're thinking about the other guys, kids, or the other guy who's down the street. To hell with him. It's not affecting my world right now. But, it's my job to kind of get in your head and help you think about some things, maybe from a different perspective. I'm a gun enthusiast. I love guns. I've always loved guns. That's no secret. Everybody knows me, knows that. And, I'm not here to do reviews like a lot of cats are. I think the guys that do reviews are great. I think the guys that do tutorials on guns are great. There's a lot of good information out there. And if I purchase a firearm, the first thing I'm going to bring it home and do is punch up Hickok 45 and see if he's got a tutorial on that particular weapon, because he's going to run me through it, tell me the pros and cons about it, what I need to look out for, and I will know more about that pistol leaving the damn house, coming right out the box, than I could learn from countless other resources of information before I ever get it to the range. So, those videos are great, but I want to get in your head. I want you to think about some things. I want you to think about, here, I'll give you a scenario. We talked about people continuing to be punished, getting a life sentence for committing a crime when they were young. When you tell a man he could never have his gun rights after he's already done 5 years in prison, he's paid the dues on a crime, we'll say, and then you tell him he can't have his gun rights for the rest of his life, you're giving him a life sentence. Now I want you to put yourself in a scenario. You're at a picnic with your family, right? Little Susie, your child, your daughter, she throws a rock and hits the car window, breaks the car window. Well, you snatch her up, pop her on the ass a couple of good times, make her cry, scold her real good, and as far as you're concerned, she's punished for what she's done, right? Would you, as a parent, tell little Susie she can no longer go on family picnics for the rest of her life because that one time she did go, she threw a rock and broke a window? Would you do that to little Susie? Would that be fair treatment? No, hell no, it wouldn't be fair. You spanked her, you scolded her, you got on to her, now you loved her and you've embraced her back in, but she can no longer go on family picnics. Does that make sense to little Susie? Does it make sense to anybody? Does it make sense to me? Hell no, it don't make sense to me. I wouldn't treat my kids that way. Don't get me wrong. I'm the first one that says a child might need a pat on the ass every once in a while. But after you do that, you love them and you embrace them and bring them back into the fold. Now don't get me wrong. I understand there's some folks that just ain't reachable. I've done some time, believe me, some severe time. And I know that there's people who belong in a cage. But we're not talking about that boat. We're talking about the kid who makes a mistake at 21 years old and now his life has been affected. He can no longer hunt with Grandpa the rest of his life. No longer go out to the shooting range with his brothers the rest of his life. Uncle Ernie wants to take him goose hunting up in Canada, but he can't go because he's a convicted felon. You see what's happening? We're taking our youngsters and we're punishing them forever because, some woman down the street's afraid that she's going to get mugged. Listen, I know you don't think about these things, but I'm going to try to get you thinking about them in the short time I've got to talk to you. Most of the men I knew in prison that were convicted for murder were good men. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some cats in there who were real psychopath, serial killer type people. But 90% of the guys that I knew doing life sentences for murder, were good guys. They got up that morning, everything was groovy. They started off their day just like everybody else, but in the course of their day, something went wrong and somebody wound up dead. Does that make them bad men? Not necessarily. Did they do a bad thing? In society's eyes, yeah. I have a dear friend of mine who was sitting in his trailer one time, drinking his beer, watching TV, and out the window he heard some screaming and hollering and crying. Well, he looked out the window, and the next door neighbor was just over there beating the brakes off of one of his kids. Well, this friend of mine gets up, goes over to the man's house, tells him to stop beating the kid. The man turns around and says, "Back here," on them type things. And they got into an altercation. The man who was beating his kids wound up dead. My friend ended up doing 25 to life in the Arizona State Penitentiary because of that. Did that make him a bad person, a bad human being? Not in my eyes, it didn't. I was proud to sit and eat chow with him every day for years. Called him a good buddy and still call him a close friend. He did his time. Matter of fact, he's out of prison now. Should he be punished for all the days of his life because of something that he did in the spur of a moment, what they call a crime of passion? Should the 22-year-old who gets caught going to a party with just enough dope to make it a felony should be punished all the days of his life just because of some little bullshit college thing that now is practically legal anyway? Think how many men that were convicted back in the 70s and 80s on marijuana charges, when hell, they're giving it away now. And that's going to affect them all their life. Are those things right? If you can honestly sit back and eat your cupcakes and drink your coffee and do whatever you do and feel like it is, then I really don't want you subscribing to what I'm talking about anyway. But if you've got enough compassion in your heart to at least listen, to allow my voice into your head and stir around, whether you kick it out the other side and say, "Hey man, I kind of got to disagree with you, Uncle Chuck," I can dig that. But if you've got a heart big enough to listen, let my voice in and let it stir some things up. And I'm anxious to hear back from you. And I really want you guys to write in and tell me what you're thinking, because that input will help me to produce more videos so that we have more time to talk. Man, I hope y'all come back every time I'm on here and hear me. And remember, do what you got to do, but be good at it.